So good day. We're learning Tanya Pedic, page 144, chapter 52. We're in the middle of the page, and Alter Rebbe is explaining to us here how Hashem manifests himself through the soul of a person within the body. And basically, there are stages, and we're going to go over the 4 stages. And then the Alter Rebbe will explain it briefly, and I'll try to elaborate a little bit. So let's go right to the text, and that's about 8 lines from the chapter 52, Perek Nun Beis, on page 144, where it says Umakar Zed. The line begins with the word Mehamoyach. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Actually, 11 lines from the beginning of chapter 52. Umakar Zeh, this source that's within the brain, in the head, for the Hu Hanikra, it is called Alma Galia, the world of revelation. That's number 1. Number 2, it's called Umatronisa. Matronisa is the Aramaic word for Malka, the queen. Number 3, it's called Ve'ema Tato, the lower mother. We'll explain this all soon. And number 4, it's called Ushchina, the divine energy that rests, that dwells. Meloshain, the word Shchina, the Alter Rebbe says, comes from the terminology, from the word Vishochanti Bisocha. It says in Parshas Truma, God says, I will rest amongst them, amongst the Jews, Jewish people. So there is an aspect of God that God dwells and rests, Shochein, i.e. Shechina. So again, we have 4 stages. You must get this down, because if you don't get this down, the rest of the chapter is going to be a big dark cloud. There is the way Hashem is in a manifestation state called Alma Galia, the world of revelation and manifestation. There is the way God is called Matronisa, a queen. There is the way Hashem relates to the world in a manner called Ema Tato, lower mother, and there is the way Hashem relates to the world in a way called Shechina. What does that mean? Look further. Al Shem, why is Hashem called Al Midas Galia Shemokar Zeh? This place, this source. Hu Reishis HaIzgalus Oir Ein Sof Baruch Oir Ein Sof. It's the initial revelation of the infinite God. Asher Mamshi. Stop. So here's the point. Before animation is possible, we have to understand that where animation comes from is a place and a position where animation is possible. I'll give you an example. If you put a teacher who is a genius into a classroom with children or young people, and they're so far apart, it's not only that those students and children and those young adults won't know the information. They're not in the category of the teacher's knowledge. So in other words, it's not about you got it or you don't get it. Of course you don't get it. The question is do we have something in common sitting in this room? And if you don't have something in common, whether you get it or not is irrelevant, because you're never going to get it. You don't have something in common. Now the same is true with Hashem. Hashem, God, in his infinity, and in pure infinity, there is no place for world. world is finite and limited. So from a strict infinity perspective, you can't create a world. So if you can't create a world from infinity, you can't call it the source, the makar. A makar, a source, means that I share something with you and I'm your source. But if I don't share that with you because we are in two different planes, I'm not your source. So the Alter Rebbe says that the first stage of Hashem's desire for a world to be is placing himself in what we call Alma de Isgalia. Alma de Isgalia is before he emanates. It's within himself. He positions himself. Hashem chooses to manifest himself within himself. It's like, so it's analogous, Moshe, it's analogous to the teacher. I'll give you what I think is a very practical example. 2-3 weeks ago, I was invited 3 weeks ago to speak to children at my alma mater, my yeshiva, Lubavitch Yeshiva, right here in Brooklyn on Ocean Parkway between H and I. Yoni knows the area, right? So I said to the principal, it was the yahrzeit of the Rebbe's brother-in-law, of Shmaryo Garari. I told you about that. So when he called me to invite me, I said, sure, it's the greatest honor. I happened to even sit in Rabbi Garari's chair in his office when I was hired, when I came back from California as the alumni director for the yeshiva. But this was a great privilege. But I said to the principal, I have a problem. I usually speak to people who are mid-age, intelligence, You want me to speak to 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds? I can make myself funny. I can make them laugh and have a good time. But how do you expect me to communicate? So he says, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And guess what? Someone stopped me in the store yesterday, outside of a store yesterday here, and said, I heard the kids loved you. I said, okay. He says, you had them in your hand and they were quiet. 40, 50 little kids are sitting there quiet, listening to this rabbi with a white beard talking to them about his memories of 50 years ago growing up in the same yeshiva. Now, what do I mean? Why am I sharing this story with you? Because when I prepared to say, I reminisced my memories. So I wanted to tell them a few stories and jokes and how the first Friday when the yeshiva building opened up in 1969 in September, in Elul, August, September. And I was there the first Friday because I was there for the first moment the yeshiva opened. Friday afternoon, we finished 12 o'clock, and the buses are waiting for us to take us to our different places. We lived in East Flatbush at the time, which is near Crown Heights. And I ran out to get my bus, right? I was 9 years old, to 8, 9 years old, to get the bus. I shouldn't miss the bus. And I ran out. I fell. You know how I fell? Because the cement wasn't yet cemented. It was loose. It looked all finished. And I fell like this and made an image of my body, my little body on the cement. And they covered it over. I remember it. I remember it like yesterday, 1969, September 69. So I told them that, and that got them to laugh. The point is that I worked on removing, my adult teaching and going into communicating with little children, which I haven't done in a long time. And Baruch Hashem, I was told it worked. It was great. But the point is, if I hadn't done that, there's no, it's not that I wouldn't get the message across and they wouldn't enjoy it. I'm in a different world from them. I'm teaching adults. I'm teaching older people, intelligent people, not little children. So you have to make a tzimtzum. You have to contract your knowledge and then how you're going to articulate it for little children. The same is with Hashem. Ein Sof, infinity, God being infinite, Mark, right? How can we make this finite world if he's infinite? And the answer is Hashem had to contract himself. That's the first point, Avram, that Hashem is Alma is Galia. He positions himself in a way of manifestation. In other words, he says to himself, I want to manifest. I'm open for others to perceive me. I'm open for that type of relationship. That's the first thing. The second thing is Matronisa. There's a queen. The queen takes information from the king and brings it to the people. So here is a second stage where the infinity of God has opened itself to accepting a finite experience, but you need someone to communicate it. So let's use the same mashal again, Chaim Zev. Okay, you're saying to yourself, I'm willing now to negotiate, to talk to another domain, another category, but who's going to be the negotiator? That's the second step. Matranisa. Where Hashem one second, Moshe. Where Hashem positions himself and expresses himself as a queen. The symbolism of the queen is the queen receives from the king, from the melech. And what does she do with that information? She's able to bring it to the people. Yes, Moshe. Moshe Braun, you wanted to say something?
I missed you maybe to have a step back about this issue of, you mentioned negotiating. You used the word negotiating. I feel. I didn't catch that.
What I'm saying is the second stage in which Hashem relates to the world is once Hashem has positioned himself to be open to negotiation, open to accept and listen and hear and be within a finite place, because Hashem in his pure essence is infinite. So I'm using the word negotiating. In other words, the negotiation means I'm willing to talk to you. Because I myself have placed myself in a place of negotiation. You can't negotiate unless you really, correct negotiation is that the negotiator compromises in a way on his or her stubbornness or righteousness or correctness and says, you know what? For the sake of the greater situation, I'm going to negotiate. So that's the mushal. That's the mushal. The nimshal, the moral is that Hashem is willing to negotiate with a finite world. Which aspect of Hashem does that? Kabbalah calls that matronisa, which means malka, the queen. You need a queen to bring the king's dictates to the people. Because coming from the king is aloof. The king is too strict. The king is not interested. The queen who's the queen to the king, she has that more refined relationship with the king, and she can then put it into her words and her way of understanding it, and then bring it to the people. And from there, we come to a third stage, which is called Ema Tato. You know, we say in Hallel, Eim Abonim Smecha. King David HaMelech says, David says in Psalms and Tehillim, Eim Habonim, the mother of children, Smecha is happy. A mother who has children is very happy, and she's happy with her children. Aim is mother. Bonim means children. But guess what? Bonim also comes from the word Yoni, Bina, comprehension and understanding. The father is Chochmah. Chochmah is an intuitive flash. Chochmah is aloof. It's the creative idea. So Moshe is sitting there in the studio. Avram sitting in there in the studio, and they're looking, and they come up with an idea. But in the point of creativity, it's not simcha. It's something else. We call it tainu, pleasure. And you know why it's not simcha? Because you don't have yet the full picture. You just have the idea. So yes, the Gemara says when Rabbi Elazar found a new Tosefta, a new piece of Talmud, Sovu Ponim, his face lit up. The lighting up of a face is not simcha. It's what we call pleasure, tainuk. That you have. Chochmah and tainuk are related. Bina is related to simcha. Because when you comprehend something very well, in other words, when you're able to take your creative idea and to put it into an analytical position where A is A and B is B and how you're going to draw and what you know what I'm saying? That brings simcha. Because you have now not just an idea. You know how many people have great ideas and they go nowhere? How many patents are accepted compared to how many people have bright genius ideas? Very few. How many things does the FDA approve compared to what's out there? Which eventually, if you invest in stocks like that, you either make a lot or you lose everything or close to it. Right? Because taking it from the idea to fruition is night and day. So when it is in fruition, when a mother has a child, there's an offspring, that's simcha. So marriage is a great simcha, but the next step is a child, a baby. I mean, you want to procreate and continue the seed and etc. And if you don't, there lacks simcha in that area. Doesn't mean there shouldn't be simcha in other areas, but you know, I mean, if someone who's on a high level has simcha even then. But anyway, let's stay to the topic. So let's go back now to the Hashem. We speak about Hashem being in a negotiating position with the world of the finite world, where God says, I'm infinite, but I'm willing to talk to you because I am putting myself into that position. I need the help of a queen, a matronisa, to facilitate it. But guess what? That's not enough. A queen is not enough. You have to become a mother. Ema tato. And the reason it says the lower mother, because there's two aspects. There's a higher mother too. I don't want to go into it now. We'll get to it at some point. What does it mean, Ema tato? The mother brings it into reality. The queen negotiates it into reality. But until the hostages are actually swapped, and brought back to Eretz Yisrael, it's all talk. And guess what? At any moment, it can break up. It can change. Any moment. Nothing is guaranteed. When they are in the van, the Red Cross van, crossing back from Rafah back into Eretz Yisrael, and they come back to their home and all that, here, Eimatato. The lower mother makes the baby. Eim habonim smecha. That's when you have simcha. And finally, that's the third stage. And finally, the fourth stage is Shechinta. Shechina rests, it dwells. It's not just I come and say hello and then I leave, but I rest there, I dwell there. The word dwell, Shechina means the dwelling of God's presence is in your home. You know what this is similar to? You bring God in, we learned this in chapter 34, and Hashem becomes Ushpizin de Gvura, your guests. Wow. You imagine everyone sitting now at their house, wherever you are, or your studio, or your office, wherever you are. The door, there's a knock on the door. Who comes to the door? Hashem, I would like to dwell with you. Are you ready for me? That's a very different experience than the number 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 are all still metaphysical, theoretical. But when the guy knocks on your door and you take him in, that's reality. I heard a great story last night. I got to share it with you. So this fellow shows up to a shul in Yerushalayim. This has actually happened. The people there see that they never know that they never saw this young man before, and they notice that he's kind of not he's coming from elsewhere, and they go over to him, they talk to him, and he says yes, he's about to teshuva, and he's just looking. So they say okay. They talk to the rabbi in the shul. I forget the name of the rabbi, but Karlovsky. There's a rabbi in Yerushalayim, Karlovsky or something. And he takes him in. Not only does he take him in, he takes him home. And he says, you're going to sleep here. And during the day, you could learn in our shul, in our yeshiva, whatever, and you'll eat there. And he says, great. He does that. After a while, he wants to marry. He meets a girl. He goes to his mother and he says, I'm engaged and I'd like you to come to the wedding. She says, I don't want to come to your wedding. I'm not coming to your wedding. You've ruined my life with your religion. She wasn't religious, to put it mildly. And leave me alone. He tries once, twice, 3 times. It's the last day before the wedding. So he tells the rabbi, maybe you could help me with this because she's not coming. She doesn't want to come. She's so upset. So he calls the mother and he says, you know what? Do me a favor. Don't come to the wedding for your son. Come for me. Do me a favor. I'm asking for a favor. She says, do me a favor? The last time I heard do me a favor, it also backfired. He says, what? Since when doing someone a favor backfired? She says, I'll tell you. Years ago, many years ago, I was in New York. And I was told to meet the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So I went to meet the Rebbe, I guess Sunday when he gave out dollars. And as I came by, the Rebbe said, do me a favor. Exact words that this rabbi said probably 40 years later or whatever. So after the Rebbe gave me the dollar and he said, do me a favor, I decided I'll do the Rebbe a favor. And I went to the mikveh. And this son is the result of doing me that favor. And now, because she hates his son, because he became about the Shuvah, she said, the last time someone asked me to do me a favor, it backfired. When the rabbi heard the story, it's a great story. It's a real story. When the rabbi, because the one who said it publicly that he heard the story from the rabbi and the people there. When it came to, she didn't come to the wedding. She did not come to the wedding. But the simcha that night was so great by these people, because until then they thought, he came from a mother who didn't go to the mikveh, who had the son. Yes, he's about to shuva, blah, blah, blah. That's their thinking. So, it's like, inside, it's like, And when they heard that he's actually the result of a mikveh, that his mother had him from that night from going to the mikveh, he was conceived, the simcha at this wedding was tenfold, 100-fold. That's the story. And why am I saying it? Besides that, it's a great story. Do me a favor. The Shechina. The Shechina is the do me the favor. Until the Shechina rests in our lives, it's all theoretical. It's all discussion. But when Hashem knocks on your door and he says, may I come in to stay with you and I want to become part of your home, boy, then it really becomes real. That's the Shekhinah. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says here, this is the fourth level in which Hashem comes into the world. Again, 1, Alma des Galia, 2, Matrinisa, 3, Ema Tata, and 4 is Shechina. He says it so briefly, but this I heard explained by Rabbi Yoel, my Mashpia, and I'm sharing some of what he said in understanding these words. I just want to read a few more words and then we'll stop. And he says now, Asher mamshichu meir la'olamois b'pchinas gilui. The Almid is Galia, its influence illuminates all the worlds in a revealed way. That is a reference, I believe, to the second level of Matronisa, like the queen that brings the king's message to the people. And from this source, there is influence to everyone individually. That's the third level of Eman. That's the fourth idea of Shechina. Therefore, this is called the mother to children. Al derech mashal, it's analogous to Uknesses Yisrael. We have a term used, the congregation of Israel. Knesset Yisrael, like Beit HaKnesset, right? What is the idea of Knesset Yisrael? Shemimokar zeh netzlu neshamos. From this source, souls are created. Souls of the world of Atzilut, the highest world, V'nivru, Neshama is the Bria, and then there's also the creation of the souls of the second world, known as the world of Bria. V'kulan einorak mi'ispashtus achayis v'oir ma'moker hazeh. And all are only but an expansion, an extension of the energy and that comes from the source. Hanikra Shechina, which is called Shechina. Behispashtut ha'oir, we're going on to top of Ayin Gimel, Ma'ashemesh, analogous to the expansion of light coming from the sun. We'll stop here, with top of 80 Ayin Gimel, and tomorrow, Mr. Shem will continue from there. Everyone have a great day.
It's never too late to have that.
What?
It's never too late to go for a new career. It's never too late to have a new career.
What do you mean? What's your reference? Oh, you mean for
I'm
me?
saying, like, you're for you to go into the chinuch and into the storytelling.
Oh, into the
kids, they like the storytelling.
Yeah. We will take it under, we will, as we say in America, we will take it under advisement. Mendel Futterfass, my great uncle, would say it. You know how Americans say, kiss my, excuse me? You know how they say it? They say it in a very nice way. Mind your business.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
Sei gesund.
Right.
You know, there's the way the Russians say it, and there's the way the Americans say it, and there's the way the CEOs on Fifth Avenue say it. We will think about it. We will take an advisement. What the Supreme Court did with Trump at 9-0 basically told these guys, go somewhere. Okay, you're picking on this guy. Maybe he's corrupt and he's a crook, but he has a right to present himself and stop, trying to use Section 3 of Amendment 14 to invalidate him. It don't work that way. 9-0, including the Democratic judges and including Roberts, who isn't a Republican, and he wasn't voted in by Trump. So, there are different ways, but so Yoni, in a nice way, I will take your advice under advisement. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Take care, guys. See you tomorrow.